Yay. Okay. Sorry to get you up. Sorry, not sorry. Face the midline of the room. Civil play at the end of your mat. Civil play. Feet together, hands at the heart center. Catch your breath. Tune out, tune in. So they're exactly the same thing. You can tune out and it tunes you in. You can tune in and it tunes you out. So there's just sort of two paradigms, really, the interdependent and the independent experience. So we're tuning out of the independent and into the interdependent, and movement can help with that. So some people, I certainly am one of these people, would like to move their feet because, of course, it begins to create a flow through the whole body, and that flow points us to the reality, the fundamental scientific reality that everything's interdependent, whether we talk on a sort of local level about body, brain, and breath, or whether we realize that body, brain, and breath are part of everything else. Raise the arms up when you're ready. Lightly tone the thumb and investigate out of interest and enjoyment. So the investigation is an enjoyable process because it's part of tuning out, tuning in. Roots of the neck as soft as vegan butter. And inhale, exhale, fold down. Which I quite like that vegan butter. Vegan Block. I don't work for Vegan Block, but if anyone knows them, I'd be very happy to receive free Vegan Block for me saying now Vegan Block 4 times in a row. Hands flat on the floor, knees probably bent, because we don't want the spine to feel tight. Because the connective tissue on the soles of the feet is the same tissue that goes through the back of the legs, and that tissue goes to the sitting bones, then moving the feet can help release the back. Moving the legs can help release the feet, and so on. So movement hydrates. Hydration can bring release plus melting. Step back to Adho Mukha, that is downward facing dog position. Breathe through your nose. Just check that your hands are equidistant from the front and the sides of the mat. Breathe expressively. Open and stretch with investigative awareness, the inner armpits. So I guess it's easy to miss out some of the instructions, but it's harder if I repeat them with investigative awareness. Open the inner armpits. So there's two parts to the instruction. Open the inner armpits. The other part is with investigative awareness. And of course, the inner armpits are matched and measured by the outer and the under. Come forward so that you're hovering, your shoulders are hovering above the wrists, make any adjustments that feel helpful to you. And breathe through the nose. Allow the pose to have movement if you find it useful, which it probably is. Lower the knees to touch the floor so lightly that it feels a bit annoying. Breathe deep. Lift the knees. Very calm. Bring the knees down, forearms onto the floor, as if you're holding bunches of flowers, and take that deep breath I know you want. Yeah, take a few of those deep breaths. Let them happen. We're moving to the selfless realm, which is the interdependent realm. Right? So it's not that there isn't a self, it's that there isn't an independent self, that is a self that's made up of anything conditioned that can be separated and defined in opposition to everything else. Here's myself, here's everything else. Stretch the legs back and hover. Similar position, but less on the wrists, just as much on the belly. Again, move it around so neither the back gets tight nor the belly gets tired too quickly. So move it left, move it right, move it forwards, move it backwards. Breathe easy. Bring your knees forwards, come to hands and knees. Take that deep breath I know you want to take. Follow it with another, and another, and another, as is customary with the breath, to take so many. Just keep letting them flow for a few deep breaths. Any organic natural movement in this pose, Bhamanasana, which means table pose. Some people call it tabletop. I don't know why. It just means table. And jaw soft, eyes soft. Take the arm that's furthest away from me and feed it in the air above the floor towards me. And then same the other side. So go back and then turn the other way. A couple more times on each side, making 3 in total. Listen and respond to the way the back feels. Go slower if you need to, faster if you need to. Bend the other elbow if you need to. So there's a direct response to the body's needs in the present. And finally, after 3 on each side, back to hands and knees and take that deep breath. I know you want to. And then a few of those deep breaths happen. Soften the eyes, the temples, the forehead. The arm that's furthest from me on the floor slides towards me. Up, the other arm extends out. Breathe through your nose if you can. Listen and respond is like falling in love. And of course, falling in love we fall in love with many things. Can even fall in love with a piece of vinyl, or at least the music on the vinyl. You can fall in love, for a moment with the sunset. You can fall in love with a person, you can fall in love. And falling in love is surrender here and now. That's what it basically points to. And surrender and giving go together. So if there's one thing we can say that defines love, it's giving, whether it be attention or whatever. Bring your arm back to hands and knees. Draw the deep breaths, plural. So let a few of those happen. And then feed underneath the other arm, similarly, of course, the other direction. So this time away from me. Palm up. The other arm extends out. Eyes are soft, brain is soft. Anterior spine is something we viscerally want to know. So we viscerally want to know it. We want to know it like we might know what the ocean feels like if we swim in it. We want to know it viscerally. And so we need to breathe into it, therefore. We need to breathe into it. Retract the arms, slow and calm. Come back to hands and knees. Please take a blanket, lay it down, lay a human being on top of the blanket after that. The blanket itself needs to be open enough to accommodate the pelvis and the chest. And that's all. Once laying down on the blanket, we come up onto the elbows, forearms, wrists, and a little stretch can be very, very helpful. So tummy toned, pulling back on the blanket or the floor to stretch the tummy and to stretch the back. It can be helpful to stretch the legs back as well. We're stretching 2 ends of the same muscle area, the psoas, the lower end at the top of the inner thighs, the upper end attaching to the sides of the spine. Repeatedly do both, legs back, tummy forwards, and feel what you're stretching between those two. Legs back, tummy forwards, legs back, like that. Stretch your arms back with your thumbs on the floor. Lift your chest. Don't turn the heels in. So release the fibers of the gluteus maximus that would want to turn the heels in. If you don't know how to do that, just don't turn your heels in. And then raise your legs up a little bit off the floor. Breathe through your nose. Head can be down or up. Shoulders should be back. And gentle. Eyes are soft. Eyes are soft. Take your arms forwards to fingertips on the floor. And again, just try and notice the combination of calmness and action together. Sthira Sukham Asanam. Breathing through the nose. Lowering yourself, rest one hand on top of the other on your head, on your hands, and take deep breaths. 2, 3, 4 or more. Enjoy them if you like enjoying things. And then roll over. So come up a little bit and roll over. And then roll up your blanket. We'll have a blanket of fun. It's a Cockney song. And we're rolling it up like that. And we're going to lay on it. Not necessarily a Cockney activity, but anyway. I'm sure some Cockneys would be receptive to the idea. Goes underneath the bottom edge of the shoulder blades. The tummy is toned. The arms stretch over the head, which you might find a useful method of going about that is to move the arms to move the shoulder blades. So, moving the left arm to the right and the right arm to the left, either off the floor or sort of coming off the floor to do it. But being clear that moving the shoulder blades, particularly the inner lower edge of the shoulder blade, so that's the edge nearest the spine, but the lower part of that edge, move that away from the spine. And that will really help the arms a lot. And repetition, of course, makes things that seem impossible possible. Lots of little repetitions. So don't ever sort of let yourself believe that, oh, I'm stiff or my body's tight. Do lots of little incremental movements. Focus on tiny releases, but lots of them. So that means lots of repeated action sometimes, like movement of the arms. Because we know that through movement, there's more hydration. We know that there's more melting of the myofascia, plus the samskaras, that is the habit energies that run from the nervous system to the muscles, get challenged. And eventually, although they're quite tenacious, if you challenge them enough, consistently enough, they will give up, they will let go. Breathing through the nose, jaw soft, legs together, keep the legs together. In that way, everything is lovingly pushed and nudged towards the central channel. Pushed and nudged towards the central channel. Great, okay. It's nice to stay in this one, but we'll bend the legs and place the feet on the floor and roll over to our sides and come up from the sides and take a breath off 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or 29. And we're going to take our mat and fold a third of it over. Not a quarter, that's not enough, but a third. We're going to take a belt as well, a homage to Hatha Yoga. Many classes call themselves Hatha Yoga, and not many actually do anything that's in any Hatha text, but this is in Hatha texts, the early Hatha texts, like the Amrita Siddhi. So we're going to sit on that folded third. Now, it may be that you might find it useful to sit on a block as well. So that if you're sitting on a block, you're going to push it back on the side that's furthest away from me, like that. So this is, just imagine I'm sitting on this block, but I push that side back. You would do that if you really found it close to impossible to get any sense of elevation in the lower back. Either sitting on a block or not, but we do need elevation. And then we're going to take that leg. Remember, if you're on a block, push the side furthest away from me back. And so it's that leg that's furthest away from me that we draw back. And we either place the foot against the opposite inner thigh or onto the top of its own inner thigh, which brings the whole body back. So you have to sort of twist it forwards again. And you come to your fingertips. And breathe through your nose with the jaw soft. And then relax what can be relaxed if you want, or stay tense if you like being tense. And of course, the breath is highly connected with our relaxation. So take some deep ones. So you've got a belt nearby, perhaps sitting on a block. We're going to bring the belt around the ball of the foot. So in modern postural yoga, MPY, we have a pose called Janu Shirshasana, which people often used to translate as things like head to knee, but it's a very unfortunate translation for many reasons. Janu does mean knee, and Shirsha means head, but that's it. There's no to or from anything. It's just knee, head. So the Iyengar translate that as releasing away from the head of the knee on the back leg, which I quite like. Anyway, the pose is based on something earlier, which is important that we pull on the belt and lift up the spine and make some space through the central channel. So if you can imagine and feel a central channel, keeping the eyes soft, the brain soft. Imagine and feel a central channel. So this is the Mahamudra, where you focus, and this is why people say Hatha Yoga is physical yoga. What they mean is it's sort of more physicalized focus on tantric paradigms like the central channel. Where in Tantra you might visualize it, you might breathe into it. In Hatha Yoga, you physically move it and stretch it. And this is part of 3 practices that we find together in Hatha Yoga: Mahamudra, Mahabandha, Mahaveda. So this is Mahamudra. For some people, as they sit and look for space and breathe and open, feel the psychophysical opening of the central channel, they also find that the hamstrings release, and so the pelvis will tilt. So we don't hold that back if it happens, but neither do we try to do it if it's not happening. You know, it's what's important is the central channel. So it might be that some people end up holding the foot. Most of us are probably better off staying with the belt, because it's super important to focus on this channel that we imagine lays along the front of the spinal column to the front of the spinal column. It's about the thickness of your thumb. And you want to feel into the whole of its length, Mahabandha takes a practice that we find in the tantras, in some of the tantras, where we take what's called the upper kundalini and the lower kundalini, and we draw the upper kundalini, we invite the upper kundalini down, and we squeeze the lower kundalini up so that they both come to the middle kundalini at the heart. So to do this is called Mahabandha. We bring the chin and chest towards each other quite dynamically. And we imagine and feel a sort of nudging, rising, gentle invitation from the pelvic floor, drawing up like a puppet is pulled up on strings. There's a sense with the belly drawing in, and the pelvic floor drawing up, and the chin down, that we're pushing from below and inviting from above to the heart center. So it's this brilliant technique. It seems like it was probably invented by Buddhists, but we don't know for sure. Certainly it's the first time we find it is in a Buddhist text. Okay, release nice and easy. So that's Mahabandha and Mahaveda and Mahamudra. And then we extend out, give ourselves a little rub down, especially around the knee pots. Knee pots is a technical term. Give them a good old rub down. Take a breath, shake out a little bit. If you found that intense, that's good. And then we're going to do the other side. So let the other leg go soft and move out. Either placing the foot, remember if you're sitting on a block, just ski with the block, like the other way. The other side goes back. Just make space for the foot that then is drawn back, you see. And that foot comes into the top of the opposite thigh, or with some people, the top of its own thigh. You should have no sharp sensations in the knee. If you do, you can take the foot further away from the pelvis and or support the knee with support. Softening the mind at the same time as the breath, at the same time as the inner thigh can be helpful. We're on fingertips. We're turning towards our foot. We're looking for lightness in the lumbar, something that we can breathe into. Lightness in the lumbar. So the term itself, Mahamudra, is a tantric term, or a term that was used in the Tantra, not for a physical action, but for sealing the mind in the great mudra, Mahamudra, which is in union with the oneness of the way things are, which inherently negates clinging. So you can you kind of lock your mind into that union. That's called Mahamudra. We're going to take the strap or the belt around the foot. And we practice our Mahamudra first, which is to pull on the strap or the belt with love and investigate. Investigate, opening up the central channel, which we imagine as a channel. And that, of course, is imagined to give ourselves something to orientate, to give the body something to orientate itself around. And to give ourselves a visceral or a physicalized correlate to this principle of being in the middle, or being centered, or being non-dual. In yoga, quite a lot of people get into non-dualism, they get excited by it, and then they start loathing on the dualistic perspective. They don't like that at all. But of course, ultimately, non-dualism is a form of dualism. So, these are just conventional, temporary structures which we want to go beyond. So just feeling, and we're just looking for efficacy in terms of absorption. Again, it sometimes happens. I just don't want anyone for whom it's happening to feel sort of stuck. That the hamstrings release while we're here, and that might mean, it could just mean that you've got short legs and long arms, but some people hold the foot while still keeping the central channel open. It really, what matters is the central channel, not whether you're using a belt or holding a foot. Don't hold the breath. Mahamudra, the great Maha seal mudra. Soften whatever can be softened, particularly the knee of the bent leg, the inside of it. Mahabandha involves 3 bandhas. Uddiyana bandha, the tummy draws in and up, and that pulls up Mulabandha, the pelvic floor feels buoyant. The chin and chest come towards each other in this way. We squeeze the lower kundalini, which pushes it up. And we press on the upper kundalini, which invites it down. And we imagine that both these kundalinis come to meet the middle kundalini, the heart. And of course, this makes not just the central channel, but the center of the central channel. We get increasingly centered until eventually we disappear down a point that is the middle of the middle of the middle of the middle, called the Bindu in Tantra. And this is mentioned way before Tantra in the Upanishads. And it's easy to daydream, but let's stay in touch with these bandhas. This squeezing of the lower kundalini, this drawing up on the lower kundalini, and the pressing down on the upper, and the invitation for them to meet powerfully at the center. Very good.
Okay, come slow and easy out of that. Very important at our practice for reasons I think that is apparent. We're going to lay down after having opened our mat up, keeping the belt close to hand. We're going to lay on our backs with our hands under the head as if we're on a holiday. Breathing easy. You can imagine you're on holiday in a place, like a place where people come from around the world and from around the UK to take holidays. You could imagine yourself in somewhere like Brighton, holiday destination for many. And you can relax. Like you're on holiday. Lift the feet up off the floor, the lower back kisses the floor, which is a sort of, and movement might be part of that, express it. So we're much more common than calling these poses asanas is to call them mudras, bandhas, karanas. Mudra we've talked about. Bandha is a sort of seal. Karana is an expression. Lift up your head and breathe through your nose. That makes the lower back really get close to the floor, which is beneficial. Some of you might be able to, at least temporarily, use the abdominals so strongly that the pelvis lifts up, or at least feels like it might be close to lifting up. That can cause trembling, and there ain't no harm in a bit of trembling. Breathe into it. Cool, calm, collected. Head back down, feet back down. I want to hear a deep breath from everyone. And just let a few happen. So this sense of shraddha, or in Pali saddha, trust is expressed in this moment as giving. As a concept, shraddha means nothing. There's literally no point in it. But as an experience here and now, it's one of giving. And giving is total. We've heard the famous and wonderful metaphor, Jim Tarran metaphor of the person standing on a little bridge over a little stream, and you see them there and you say to them, "What are you up to?" And they say, "Well, I want to drop a stone, but I'm not sure how. I want to drop a stone." And you just say, "Well, just let it go, buddy. Just let it go." And they say, "Well, I'm not sure I want to drop it completely. Can I drop it a bit?" You're like, "Sorry." There's dropping or there's not dropping. Similarly, giving is like that. It's giving or it's not giving. There's no giving a bit, or letting go a bit. If you want to drop the stone, you just got to let it go. Lift up the feet, lift up the head. Open the angle at the back of the knees to about 90 degrees, please. We're going to turn towards the highly decorated shrine and bring the knee up that's closest to it and the elbow that's furthest from it towards each other. And of course, if you're at home, you might not have a highly decorated shrine there to turn towards or away from. So any direction. And then the other side, we call it side 2. Breathe easy. Relax if you want. Tense up and try really hard and furrow your brow if you prefer. One more time on each side. And raise the opposite leg. Keep the lower back very, very meditatively intimate as you bring that leg up and down. And then same on the other side. Keep the lower back meditatively close to the floor. And then return to center. Head down, feet down, deep breaths, multiple deep breaths. And so this sort of sense of giving is shraddha. So in Buddhism, particularly in the Mahayana paradigm, but way before that too, the paradigm of giving is seen as one of the most central paths to liberation. There's a very famous story about a person called Anathapindika. And there was a park, and Anathapindika thought, well, that'd be nice for the Buddhists, you know, because they kind of got nowhere to live. They're always wandering around, and in the rainy season, it'd be nice if they had somewhere to go. I'd like to buy them that park. He was very rich, Anathapindika. But the owner of the park said, nope, you can't have it unless you cover the whole thing in gold. So Anathapindika did, except apparently he didn't have quite enough gold for the little entrance way into the park. And then the guy that was selling it chucked it in. He said, go on then, seeing as you've given me. So this is and Anathapindika features throughout the early texts as a lay follower who eventually enters into high levels of evolution, you could call them. Anyway, long story. Lift up your feet, lift up your head. We're going to see how close, without yanking on the neck, we can bring the elbows and knees towards each other. So should be no yanking on the neck at all. It's all held in the abdominals. The knees don't have to be together. They can be a little way apart, or they can be together if you prefer. I actually prefer mine a little way apart. And then come down again, and feet are down, and everyone takes a deep breath. And, you know, a few of those would be very, very healthy. So let's take a few of those. And this sense of giving. So this is so fundamental, it becomes one of the most basic paramitas, or perfections they're called, that are to be developed on the so-called bodhisattva path. Bodhisattva is an awake sattva being. Bodhisattva. So bodhi is it's had its roots strengthened to guna grade. So instead of bud, it's bod. But it's basically the same thing. Raise up a leg. That one. Yeah, that one. Go for that one. Yeah, that's a good choice. And then dorsiplantar flex the foot. Point, push, circle if you want. Anything else that you want, you can just move your foot around, basically. Scrunch the toes and release them. Turn the foot and extend. Move the whole leg back and forwards if you want. Just bring a bit of life. When ready, heel in, toes out, bend at the knee, cross over the other. I like to go on the flat part of the fibula. A friend of mine, Pablo, whose dad jokes rival mine, and some of them are mine. It's just get off my jokes, Pablo. But anyway, he likes to go onto the outer ankle. I must take some of his jokes. I prefer the flat, but I trust him. I trust him to know his own experience. So anyway, therefore, I presume that both could be good. So you've got both options. Lift the foot that's on the floor off the floor. Lift your head as well. Breathe through your nose. So it's a little combination. Abdominal work, but a little hip work as well. You can raise and straighten the far leg, or to whatever extent feels peaceful, and move to whatever extent feels useful. Left, right, forwards, back. Good. And then bend the leg, foot down, head down, both feet down. Take a deep breath in, followed by a deep breath out. And then, of course, another follows that, and another follows that, etc. Raise up your other leg and follow a similar, I was going to say procedure, but that sounds a bit wrong, doesn't it? But I haven't got a better word, so we'll go with that for now. Scrunching the toes, release the toes, circle, whatever works, bring the whole leg backwards and forwards. Whatever works in terms of loosening up should show up in the softening of your eyes, the freeing up of the breathing processes. It's meditative. It's meditative, breath-centered. Heel in, toes out. When ready, cross that leg over the other, breathing through the nose. Lift the foot that's on the floor off the floor. Hopefully there's some meditative awareness. And lift the head. So you've got this sort of hybrid. There's plenty of scope for play, for lila, whether it be rolling left or right, more or less dramatically. There's the option to raise the other leg up, which is what I would suggest we investigate. And perhaps movement will help further levels of integration. Eyes soft, brain soft, throat soft. Further levels of integration. Okay, bring the leg down, bring the head down, bring both feet down, take a deep breath with a sigh-like exhale. So it's very, very beneficial in the release of the diaphragm, these deep breaths, and the diaphragm's release will lead to the release of the psoas, which is very, very beneficial as well. Walk your feet close to the derrière. In German, that is Po. And lift the bum up. That's English, 14th century word, bum. Lift the bum up and let yourself move left and right just to loosen the lumbar. So you might shake the pelvis, tilt the pelvis, sway the pelvis, bounce the pelvis, circle the pelvis. But we want to raise higher, but with integration. That's the sort of conditioning factor. We want the lower back to be integrated in any lift. So that's why we move left and right, up and down, side to side, to generate that integration. Float down like a feather. I won't say autumn leaf. I don't like to mention the word autumn this time of year. Autumn's lovely, but summer's good, isn't it? So take a few breaths. Release your hands from behind your head. Catch 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 deep breaths with soft eyes and a soft brain. Soft eyes and a soft brain. And then roll over to face, or if you can, to face towards this side of the room, the rather full-on shrine. All the house plants are on it. All the little beads from the local aquarium are on it. It's all there. The leg you're laying on is bent to about 90 degrees. The other leg is extended from the inner groin. So that means lifting and landing. Again, that's the psoas. You can feel the lower end more clearly because it's superficial. It's nearer the skin. Once you've got a stretch that feels like it's doing the job it should, which is creating a sense of intimacy and absorption, crossing us over into the interdependence, then we'll suck in the tongue as much as our breakfasts allow, if we've had breakfast. Lift, turn, elbows, forearms and wrists on the floor. Breathe through the nose. And a little massage, you can massage it in. So moving left, moving right, moving forwards, moving backwards. Massaging it in. So of course, very, very good for the thoracolumbar fascia, the fascia that covers the thoracic, the rib area and the lumbar area, the waist area. Wonderful. Top leg on top of the bottom leg. Just take your own time. Take your own time. Come up calmly and calmly sweep the feet to the other end of the mat. Bend the leg you're laying on. Similarly, meditative investigation or investigation to move in ways that create meditation, facilitate meditation, which is absorption. It's a sort of testimony to the enthusiasm of youth that for about 15 years of my early engagement with yoga and meditation, I didn't really know what it was. It's kind of rigid. You can't really do something without knowing what it is. But I just thought, oh, that's right somehow. I should cross my legs. I should try and follow the breath, even if I spend the whole time just distracted and a bit irritated. It's kind of good. But if you think of it as absorption, something disappearing into something else completely, then that's a good way to start. When you've got that stretch, that's an absorbing stretch, suck in the tummy, push down, lift and turn, elbows, forearms and wrists on the floor. Elbows should be in advance of the shoulders a little way. Breathing should be expressive. Have a little play with it. See if you can bring a bit more hydration. Breathing should be expressive. Well done, gang. Come up by bringing the top leg on top of the bottom leg and slowly come up straight into Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Make sure, although we come straight into it, that you've got equality, that is the same distance from the sides of the mat. From the hands, each hand is the same distance from the side of the mat as each other, and each foot is the same distance from the side of the mat as each other. Extend and open the armpits, inner, outer, under, through meditative awareness. Don't hold the breath. Meditative awareness. Heels stretch back and the groins lift up and the back of the thighs go towards the front of the thighs and the front of the thighs rise towards the skies to your surprise. And you keep breathing into it. Great. Coming down calmly to a kneeling position for which many of us will find utility in using a block between the heels and buttocks and a blanket rolled up underneath the front ankles. So if you're tight in the ankles or foot arches, use a blanket rolled up. If you're tight in the knees, use a block or two and sit up tall. Breathe through your nose, sit up tall. Drop the shoulders, but raise the chest. Allow a bit of movement side to side. Don't hold the breath at all. Let it become expressive and natural. Let it flow. And disappear to reappear. Tathagata. Tathagata means thus gone. So in the agata is it refers to the past. In some circumstances, you put an A in front of something, it makes it the past. Tathagata. So in the past, you're gone. So he's gone. Tathagata. And this is one of the names of the Buddha. But later commentators said, they played with the Sanskrit and they said, well, actually, Tathagata can mean Tata plus Gata. Thus gone, so in the present, or Tathagata, thus gone in the past. But also the A can negate the Gata, thus not gone, thus arrived. So the image is one of disappearing to arrive again. Disappearing, so you disappear and reappear in the same place, but it's different. Disappear from the perception of independence, rather, into the perception of interdependence. It's exactly the same experience. but our angle on it is different. Okay. Release your hands. Again, it may be beneficial to sit on a block, but for many of us, it won't be so important to do so for what we're going to do next. Although you may want a block or two still to the side of you. So if you have it at the blocks to the side of you nearest the shrine, side towards me, just as mine are towards you, and we're going to take a belt as well. That belt will be tied around the foot that's furthest away from me, just as I'm tying mine around the foot that's furthest away from you. No need for any fancy knots, like a reef knot, for example. You can just do a regular old-fashioned knot. So the foot furthest away from me. And having tied that, you then take the leg that's closest to me and pull it back, and with it, the whole body. And you might need to do that in 2 or 3 movements so that you, as much as possible, turn towards the space behind me. So you really open the pose up, and it might need to happen in 2 or 3 stages. And then the blocks might go here. And at first, it's more than enough just to lean your hand forwards onto the blocks. You know, most of us feel like, oh yeah, that's more than enough. It's particularly true when you've got a room of old men like we have here. You can only call old men if you're an old man too. Take hold of the strap, breathe easy like that. And that might be more than enough. It's about the breath. Can you breathe into it? You know, first of all, you have to be able to breathe into whatever station you're in. One is not, it's not ready to move any further until you're fully breathing into where you are. So I've compared it to the way, it's an obvious comparison because this is how I have breakfast every day in the mornings. Well, I set it up the night before, actually. I set up a pyramid of champagne glasses in the evening. And then in the morning for my breakfast, I fill the top one. And once it's full, it overspills to the ones underneath and underneath and underneath and underneath like that. And then I just take one and throw the rest of the champagne away. But you know, the point is, it's got to fill up the top glass, then it fills up the next. The stages of glasses are stages in the posture. So I'll mention other stages, but don't move into any other stages unless you're full where you are. That means breathing. So obviously blocks can be lowered and removed. The belt, you can walk along the belt. It is a turning posture. One is turning. And over time, that is, not today necessarily. The other side of the belt can be taken as well with the hand. So you might be holding 2 sides of the belt, or in time, 2 sides of the foot. Again, so I'm just mentioning all these stations. You might turn. The pose itself is called paravrita, which means revolve. So we're over a long period of time revolving towards the sky, towards the ceiling. Breathe through your nose. It's a strong pose, so you probably add enough. So come out so easy, calm, well done. Woo. That's a game changer. Stretch out the legs, take 2 or 3 more deep breaths. Notice if you've got slightly shocked eyes, like the eyes of Padmasambhava. If you don't know the eyes of Padmasambhava, please look up Padmasambhava, or just look up the lotus born. If you can't remember Padmasambhava, you could put Tantric Buddhist lotus born, the lotus born. Particularly look up sculptures, statues, and then you'll see the kind of eyes that I'm talking about. So you know what I mean. So he's in Chamatkara, awe and wonder. Now I'm turning around. You don't have to unless you want to. I just still quite like to see y'all. Obviously, the belt is now around the other foot, and you take your leg out and turn your whole body round. Then you've got your blocks, which might come to the inner thigh. The breath comes and goes naturally. The eyes are soft. And it's enough to sit up. It's enough to sit up, or to just take hold of the strap and turn. So the parivrita can start now by turning towards your bent leg. That's the parivrita bit. And then, there are various stations, and I've always tried to emphasize that stations the rule of stations is that they don't get better as they go along. Sometimes just by coincidence they do, but that's not the rule of stations. And of course, the train line from Brighton to Victoria is a good example, because although Preston Park is nice, Brighton's also very nice as a station. Cassock's a bit dull, not a very inviting station. Burgess Hill, quite like the bridge, don't really want to get off there. Wivelsfield, no one knows what happens there. It's a mysterious place where no one lives, no one ever goes. Haywards Heath is very ugly. So it's not, it's not getting better as you go along. Right? Some of them stop at Balcombe. That looks very nice. I've never got off there. And so on. So stations are equal. And what makes a station the right is that it's the right station for you. That's what makes it a good station. So you can stay with your elbow on the blocks, or you can lower the block, or you could take the other side of the belt. These are all options, but we are working with the body slowly in a breath-centered way. This Parivrita, Janu, Shirshasana. So turning and breathing into it, most importantly. If you don't breathe into it, it's not, incorporation isn't happening. Okay. Groovy, good, great. Come on up if you can. Just experience your eyes full of shock and awe and wonder. And take a breath or two. Our last down-faced dog of the class. It's a bit of sad news. So we'll come into it when we're ready. Do it your own way. And do it in a way that conduces to breathing into it. So move left, move right, open the armpits, inner, outer, under. Stretch out, stretch out, stretch out. Heels back, inner armpit stretches, lengthens. In other words, can you imagine the inner armpit stretch and getting longer? Stretch and getting longer. Sometimes playing with the knees can help hydrate the legs, bending, extending. Okay, that'll do. That'll do, won't it? Come down. Take any comfortable seated position, whatever is sort of accessible and doesn't take you long. So it could be cross-legged, could be kneeling with blocks, could be sitting on 2 blocks with sukhasana or whatever. Whatever's comfortable for you, kneeling, cross-legged, whatever. As long as your spine can be upright. The Dhenu Bija mantra, the Dhenu Bija. Dhenu Bija is the mantra, is the sound that the mother cow is said to make to call all her babies back to her. Our babies are the dissipation of the mind, and we call everything back to the heart, because then any action, thought, or speech that comes from the heart is yoga. So it's just Hong, the Dhenu Bija is Hong. And we'll chant it by bringing our hands together at the heart center and imagine that we're calling everything back to settle down. Take a deep breath in. Hong. And then deep breaths follow. Deep breaths follow. We're going to lay down, letting ourselves still pay attention to the heart, laying on our backs for a couple of minutes only, so as not to be late this class, because I know people use it before they do other things. So we're just going to lay on our back. If your head tips back, you can use head support in the form of a blanket or a block.
Palms face up, shoulder blades scoop under. We've mentioned the centrality already of giving. Sharanagati. Surrender. Sharanagati. Surrender. And if you surrender everything, this is the ultimate act of giving. And if you're into the Shakta tradition, which nearly all, it doesn't matter if you're into Shaivism or Buddhism or Jainism, they all got into the Shakta tradition to some extent. And this is the goddess worshipping tradition that started probably around the 6th century, quite possibly earlier. Comes to its sort of culmination around the 9th, 10th centuries. So we're giving to her what is already her. And then in return, she gives us lightness, spontaneity. It takes all worry away and fills everything with ananda, bliss. Feeling into the body like it was something new, giving the fingers a bit of movement and the toes, stretching out arms and legs. When you're ready, bend your legs, place the soles of the feet onto the floor. Scoot the buttocks under and take a deep breath. Deep in, deep out. Roll onto your side, facing away from the shrine side of the room. Knees drawn up, tummy soft. Roll again when you're ready to face towards the shrine side of the room. Bringing yourself round. You might rub your eyes, stretch out an arm or a leg. And finally bring yourself up from the side. Hands to the heart. May any merit and benefit gained in our acting in this way be shared to alleviate the suffering of absolutely, without exception, all beings situated throughout space. Om. Thanks to our preposterous shrine. Thanks, guys, very much for being here. Thanks, Sumas, for coming. It's been a marvel to see you. Thank you so much. That's enough.
Thank you, Jim. Namaste.
See ya. That's enough. Great to see you. Thanks for coming.
Thank
Hang
you.
loose now.